All right, Josh. So I had a conversation recently with a couple of colleagues, peers, folks, and the topic of skills came up, but not in the way of like what they're doing right now. It actually was in a how do I use my same skills somewhere else?
And that is a good, extremely good topic to talk about, right?
So that's why it's going to be our topic today. The portability of skills today on Curiosity Continuum.
Hey, everybody, this is Josh.
And this is Brian.
Welcome to Curiosity Continuum. We're a podcast and movement started by two lifelong friends whose mission is to guide you through a changing world by helping you level up your contextual awareness, sharpen your collaboration, and problem-solving skills. Our conversations explore, examine, and reframe practical topics that help you learn something new and apply what you already know in a new way.
If you find these conversations helpful, please hit subscribe on your favorite podcast app and rate us, leave a review so others can join the community. As always, you can find us on curiositycontinuum.com and on our social media accounts. Thanks for tuning in, and let's start the conversation.
All right, Brian. So you had this idea of talking about taking skills from one area of your life, moving it to another. So we call it the portability of skills. It's a extremely awesome topic to talk about because I think that a lot of people overlook this, right?
They do, and it's not necessarily intentionally. It's really because you start applying those skills a certain way and you get in a rhythm of doing it. And
Right.
you need the outside perspective sometimes just to move you or to, like, they don't come in with the same preconceived ideas or rhythm that you have. They see it differently. Here's a great example. There's a lot of musicians in Nashville, obviously, and
Right.
especially with pandemic and other issues that have happened over the course of years with, Napster. Some people are still hanging on the fact that, Napster took their job away. And it was an unfortunate thing that the music industry didn't lean into the technology at the time to be able to say,
Right.
this is how we could be
It was a
benefit.
reactionary, they're taking our jobs thing, and they just freaked out.
Correct. So when you start to look at this now, you could say you can either be reactive and be behind the eight ball and you're going to lose in some way, shape, or form, or you can start to be proactive. Now, some people will transform maybe how they've done their music. So my friend Michael Elsner has a master music licensing course where he teaches musicians how to license their own music, like for television, for commercials, for movies, all those different types of things. He decided long ago not to pursue like the record deal or pursue
Sure.
those type of things full time. He's licensing his music. He has full control of his publishing, and that's always been the language he's done. Now he's teaching others. There are some musicians also that said, like, you know what, like, I have different considerations now. I was, when I was 19 and just full of energy and vigor and I could be on the road 300 days a year, that worked. But now you can't tour and you have a family. And I've heard a lot of my colleagues, my classmates, at one point in my life, I was a music major, and a lot of these folks have now changed professions because they can't be gone, or they don't want to be gone from their family that long. That's a very real life thing. But many of them they're holding on to this, well, what else do I do? I've always done this. And it's hard sometimes to say, well, how else am I valuable? Because they've wrapped their identity up in that one thing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, I think everyone does this, where you say, I'm good at this, and for example, if you're a roofer, you're going to be like, I'm going to be a roofer my whole life, and I'm going to do all this, and I'm going to do that. But what if you can't do that? Or what if that job is not available anymore? What skills did you learn during that time that you could take somewhere else? And we see this more in the white collar world, really, but it's also really applicable to blue collar jobs, because you might be, delegating authority a lot in a job, or you might be, pointing out different things at different locations, and those skills can always transfer over. So like delegation of authority, you might have, managerial skills you don't even know about. And that kind of thing is useful, especially when you're going from, like right now, we're in this huge transition period in the whole entire world, right, Brian?
Yes. And look, if people tell you, oh, yes, we know how this is going to work out, don't listen to them.
They don't.
They
No,
don't.
No, I mean, I don't think we all know how it's going to shake out because we're going to have this long tail, almost this hangover from stuff that's happened. And it's going to be a while until the economy and society kind of rejiggers to find the new normal, you want to say? And I think that you have to really objectively look. If you're out of work, or if you're thinking that, you know what, this job might not be as stable as I thought, you really need to start thinking about what are the skills that you have in your job. And I'm not just talking about like, oh, those on the resume that I put down. I'm a great worker. I have good personality skills. That kind of stuff is important. And I think Brian's trying to get at a little different thing. So I'm going to let him talk in a second.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
It's actually a both and type of thing. The people skills, actually, sometimes people don't realize how much of an asset that is to be on a team. So if I go back to the musician standpoint, like if you are a working musician or you've worked professionally in any shape or form as a musician, you work with people all the time.
All day, all different types of people.
Yeah. When you're playing...
some that like country and some that don't. That's basically the two people.
And you have some people, like you have some fans, you have some, naysayers,
Right.
You have management, you have different musicians in the band, and
they all have different expectations, and you have to basically meet all of them.
Yes. And if you can do that, there's ways.
That's a skill.
It's a skill. And you have to learn to reframe and classify that. Now, there are a few, I would call keystones, probably too strong of a word, but there are some good icons in like the work world that actually would hire to skills and not necessarily direct experience. This is something that the Western Hemisphere hasn't really done as much as maybe like the other side of the world, because
it's lagging behind, and it's starting to get on board with it.
Yep. Part of, I think, the reason why that is because industries have been built up and they're no longer in the innovative stage. They're in the, well, how do we not lose? Asking the question, how do I win? And then asking the question, how do I not lose? They are not the same question. And so you see this again and again where they're trying to find, I need somebody with exactly this experience because I have a higher level of confidence that they will do what I think they should be able to do, versus finding somebody who has skills to adapt and figure it out and innovate and grow that role.
Right, because when you're looking for somebody with skills that are just, here, and here, you're looking for that shoehorn person that you're going to find for that project. But then what do they do after that project? If they're not able to realize that their skills are transferable or whatever, they may just go find another job. And they could still be a useful asset to your company. But they're just like, oh, no, I can't do that. So they don't even try. And it's the realization of these skills that's important too. And it's important for you to realize that you have these skills. Like Brian and I, obviously, we started this podcast and we've started a small business and we're doing our own thing. And personally, I'm amazed at like when Brian and I talk and he's like, well, you have these skills, Josh. You can do this, this, and this. I never even thought about that before, that was a skill I had. I'm just like, it's just something I've always done. I always can do it. And he's like, well, that's a skill, Josh, and in the dad voice that Brian uses, and I'm like,
Yes.
Sometimes I need to be told that. And I think other people need to be told that too, that is a skill. That's not just innate ability, is also a skill that you can have that other people don't, and is important. And it's important to realize that is valuable and it's worthwhile to pursue, right, Brian?
Yes. Community pulls out your potential in a greater way than you would ever do by yourself. That's why all elite athletes, successful entrepreneurs, leaders, they all have coaches of some kind in their life, coach or coaches. Right? They're pulling that stuff out of them. Dwayne Johnson, everybody knows Dwayne Johnson around the world probably. You could probably show it in the most remote regions of the world. And
yeah.
No, that's Dwayne Johnson over there.
That's The Rock, yeah.
It's The Rock.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at his physique over the years, like, obviously the guy's always been like physically able to do things. But in recent years, especially, it's going like, dang, you look at the man, it's like, This is a mountain of a man. There's a guy named Hani Rambod who is a multiple like successful Olympia coach for bodybuilders. And so he's done this with many people, and The Rock hired him.
Yeah.
Said, I want you to coach me. I want you to help me pull this out. If somebody like The Rock, who is completely genetically gifted and has an unwavering work ethic, has coaches, that tells you you can level up.
Yeah, and coaching is important because, and here's why coaching is important. I really want to stress why coaching is important. It's important because when you're so close to something in yourself, it's hard to see things in yourself, but other people see it. And you need that person that can say, you know what, that is a good thing. We're going to develop that. Or we're going to, in the case of The Rock, we're going to do this exercise because I know that you're lacking that because I'm looking at what you're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're sitting there and someone tells you, you know what, you're a good whatever, but you have this skill too. And you just might blow them off. Maybe you should really think about that and be like, maybe I do have that skill and maybe I need to start to accentuate that skill or start to actually develop that skill more and realize I have it. So when people ask you, hey, can you do this? You're like, yeah, I can do it.
Yeah. You're in your own frame. And other people, when they look at you, they see you in how they're looking at the world, right? It's not the same set of considerations. That's why the community idea is so important. I have a great story for you. So I have this friend of mine, and he's approaching 70 now. Let me give you the end of his career, and then I'll tell you the beginning of his career. So his name is Rich, and he he retired from AT&T. He was a very successful salesperson for AT&T, moved into other different pieces of the business. I think at the end of his run there, he was actually helping build out like the 911 like response centers. The AT&T kind of helped power it as far as infrastructure goes. But that wasn't what he always did. In fact, this guy is a highly talented singer-songwriter. And he tells a story like this. When he grew up in Indiana, and then he was kind of all around singing, playing music. And it was in his late 30s when he kind of realized, I think I need to go get a job because I have a family and it's where it's at. And, it's like I'm getting a little bit tired of the road.
You got to grow up. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, this is what he did. And he shares it. He's a great storyteller. He said he got a sales job. He said, because I didn't have a college degree and I didn't, whatever. He said, that's just what I did. And so he did it. And he was so bummed about like not being like in front of people doing his thing that like he'd come home like, every couple months and his wife would say like, Rich, how was your day today? He goes, I got another promotion. He was so bummed because he wasn't doing his sales thing. But it was in those moments, why did he choose sales? He realized, well, first of all, that was who would hire him without the experience. But he was a front man of a band. And as a front man, you are constantly working with people and entertaining them and making them feel good.
Yeah, you're selling the band.
You are selling the band all the time. And he just applied that into what he did. And then he realized, oh, actually, I really enjoy this. This is the same skill set. I'm just not entertaining people, but I am loving on people and I'm helping them have that good experience, right? And so he did that. He had the people skills to do it. He never would have thought of himself as a salesperson for AT&T versus frontman for a rock band. Why would you do that? I mean, it doesn't compute.
It doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like it jives together
until it does.
It does. Yeah.
Yep. And so some of the reinvention comes by necessity, but some of it, especially now, if you say like, how could I reframe that? People are going to bring, just like they do in a band, if depending on what configuration of instrument you're playing with and what style, it's going to inform the decisions that you make on what you play. In the same way, when you're approached with life situations, you're going to express that a little bit differently, and it's still you. You haven't lost yourself.
Right.
Which is hard because I know like Josh, in some of your past life experiences here, there have been skills that you've used in places where it's going like, well, why would it be there? Like why would you,
right?
How does that work over there? And in different parts of your life, oh, Josh, so-and-so, or Josh, this is what Josh does. You go, wait, Josh does that? Like some people didn't even know you do what you do.
Well, I can guarantee you right now, 90% of the people I work with don't realize I can do what I do.
And that's just gem, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, that's just because at my current 9 to 5, my bread and butter, whatever you want to call it, is that I don't need those skills to do that job. I don't need to flaunt them. First of all, I can just do the job and do it. And I've been at it for many years, so I'm like, okay, I'll just get it done. It's also not as fulfilling for me as some other jobs would be, and that's why, like, Brian and I are doing this. We do a bunch of other stuff. I do a bunch of creative endeavors outside of that job. As much as I can pretty much jam in, I do. And it gets tiring for sure, but it's also more fulfilling. And I think that's another thing that people need to realize is that if you have skills that you're not using and you feel that, like Brian was saying, that story, you feel just kind of like a drag on every day, there's a reason why, because you're not exercising those muscles. You're not doing that stuff that you really want to do. And so part of this is realizing you have these skills. But the other part of this, and I think we need to kind of like bring it back around, is that you can use those skills to focus on what you really want to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that there's many different tendrils this could take, but I think it's probably good to put a comma in the conversation here.
Yeah.
Let people chew on this. Josh, what would you say is a good homework piece for them to go do about this topic?
Well, I think I just kind of said it. I'll reiterate it. Think about skills that you have that maybe you don't think are skills or think that you can use them in other things. And think about if you're actually happy where you're at and could you use those skills to get to where you want to be.
Perfect. Until next time, this is Brian.
And this is Josh.
For Curiosity Continuum.